border princes are a wild land of shifting frontiers filled with petty kingdoms and camps of outcasts, and is often the stage for wars between daring adventurers. In this series of videos, we will cover a campaign set during a most turbulent period. The central combatants in this campaign will be John in command of the enigmatic High Elves, while I command their spiteful cousins, the Dark Elves. This is a map campaign, fought over an area set in the Border Princes. It is a varied landscape with mountains, rivers and forests and a few key areas of interest. Players will receive points for capturing territories on the map. Each territory is worth 1 point. Points of interest are worth 5 points each, and so will likely be hotly contested, and the regional capital, the fortified town of Malco, is worth a mighty 10 points to the owning player. There will be 20 campaign turns in which armies, or banners, will have a fixed roster of characters, but may otherwise change game to game, that move around the map capturing provinces. Each of the player armies will have 2 banners at the start of the campaign, and will gain an extra one for every 10 provinces that they control. There are also 6 non-player armies that represent either local factions or wandering marauders. The player armies will each have a HQ province, which is where new banners are generated and shattered banners can recover. If an HQ is captured, the player has 3 turns in which to reclaim it, or they are automatically knocked out of the campaign. For non-player armies, if their banners are ever shattered, then they are knocked out of the campaign, and in the following turn, a new faction will appear to replace them. Non-player armies move randomly based on a scatter dice, do not hold territory, but will damage player territories by passing through them. If a player territory is damaged in this way, it is worth half its VPs until a player banner spends a turn in the province carrying out repairs. Non-player banners will have a fixed lord for every game, but the heroes can change between battles. Player armies will have a fixed roster for all of the characters, and may only introduce new ones once new banners are raised. We will also be using a character injury chart to track damage or experience to the named characters in the campaign to add even more flavor. And should a character die 3 times in the campaign, then he or she will be considered dead for good. The player with the most VPs at the end of the 20 turns will be the winner. We will be tracking our progress with campaign update videos, as well as documenting the battles in our usual weekly battle reports, so please subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with the campaign. Keep watching if you want to hear the background stories for each of the factions we will be using. Veruvial of House Cadesh, Highborn, ruler of the Black Ark's citadel of spite. House Cadesh traces its lineage back to Old Nagarath, though for centuries they had fallen out of favour of Malekith and their fortunes have waned. Under the previous lord, Myrus, father of Veruvial, the Black Ark was set to sea again and has brought the family back into the upper echelons of Druchii society. Unfortunately for Myrus, his rise was rather too quick, and his rivals saw fit to have him and most of his court butchered when attending a revel in Clark-Arond. Lord Veruvial loathes Nagarothi politics and high society, seeing it as a slippery viper's nest. A student of history, he sees the days of old Nagaroth militarism as the pinnacle of elven achievements, or the constant backstabbing and politicking of the New World as anathema to Druchii progress. The murder of his father has confirmed that his peers in high society are only capable of advancing themselves to the detriment of Nagaroth itself. Veruvial wishes to continue to push forwards the fortunes of his house, but without having to waste time on petty suspicions and fighting off rivals. The cunning new lord has concocted a plan that will simultaneously remove himself from Malekith's court, while still increasing his prestige, wealth, and power. The plan is to establish a new colony in the Old World, to strike the poorly governed provinces of the Border Princes, to reclaim the Tower of Tor Anrock, and to build up new shipyards. With a small, self-sufficient principality under his rule, Veruvial could conduct raids up and down the coasts of Tali and Estalia, getting underway months before the shipyards of Nagaroth are able to clear the winter ice fields. Within a decade, the Lord could potentially command dozens of Corsair fleets. He then plans to propose his very own invasion plan of Ulthuan itself, petitioning the Witch King for support. In short order, House Cadesh would be responsible for Nagaroth's greatest victory, and using the new favour of Malekith, Veruviel would demand vengeance on those who killed his father. First, there is just the minor task of conquering the border princes. Though he is young, Veruviel is no fool. In the decade since his Haxia cruise, he had amassed a decent hoard of treasure and slaves, and since assuming command of the Ark, has put them to good use. For an endeavour of this scale to work, he knows what he needs, the backing of other major players, and has spent his father's wealth very generously in order to secure powerful backers from all over the land of Chill. The Citadel of Spite can put forward around 8 banners of professional infantry, while the Corsair fleet it commands can put out the equivalent of 4 banners. Like all of the great houses, House Cadesh has a personal household knight section, split between the Dark Riders and Cold One Knights. Thanks to a large offering of flesh, the Temple of Cain has pledged its support and promised a sizable contingent. Veruviel has leveraged this offer to draw the Covenant sorceresses to support him, lest they lose out some opportunity to their rivals in the temple. Gold and promises of an autonomous kingdom have won over the small clan of Altari Shades, and despite the feud with Clarkarond, Veruviel has managed to find an unscrupulous beastmaster who has fallen foul of his home city, Elandrian the Cruel, now swears his coterie of monsters to the cause of House Cadesh. One small setback is that plans have somehow leaked to his rivals, as they always do. As suspected, the cowardly Highborn will not move against House Cadesh so soon after killing its patron. To avoid suspicion, they have leaked his plans to the hated Azur and left it to the High Elves to launch an expedition to stop the colony from gaining a foothold. Veruviel must crush the High Elves as well as the myriad of other local power players and assert his dominance over his newly claimed domain. We come to a time of blood. In Ulthuan, in the land of Ivres, Prince Aeolus Aelris was out hawking with his retainers when his wife Phelan rode up desperately searching out her husband. A mysterious stranger had delivered a letter warning them of an impending plot by the cursed Dark Ones to establish a new colony around the ruins of Toran Rock in the Old World. In her husband's absence, Lady Phelan had consulted the court mage and asked him to divine the truth of the letter. To her horror, as the mage went into a trance-like state, he was suddenly racked with convulsions. When he came to, the venerable wizard looked haggard and tense. "It is worse than you think," he blinked away sweat from his eyes. "If the Dark Elves gain this foothold, it will bring about an almost certain doom for Ivres." Phelan had needed little more proof than this. Her own innate magical senses already gave her a sense of deep foreboding, and all she needed now was action from her husband. Ever the dutiful prince, Aeolus quickly mustered what force he could. He sent pleas for aid to the Phoenix court, but with portents showing a likely invasion of Anlik by the Witch King himself, no additional manpower could currently be sent to counter one of the Dark Elves' myriad plots. Aeolus and Phelan would have to win this war themselves. In the border princes themselves, there are a few human and dwarf settlements predominantly around the towns of Aldium and Malco. One of these marcher lords is Marquis Ghislaine de Carcassonne, a Bretonnian lord on campaign to win glory and renown in the turbulent border princes. The young knight has won a few battles recently and seeks further glory. He has no intention of conquering territory, merely to fight worthy foes and drive back the forces of evil. In Bretonnian society, prestige is as good as coin for enriching oneself. The other human leader is Empire General Johann Selby of Nuln, who has been semi-retired since fighting in one of the great northern wars. He has been living out his days in the Border Princes as a head of a small force designed to keep back any greenskin or beastmen incursions from the south of Blackfire. With Morslaib looming in the sickly green sky, scouts have returned, speaking of a Chaos Warbound, led by a powerful sorcerer, and Nuln has dispatched reinforcements to Johann to help him defend the area. The sorcerer, Grey Orlort the Cunning, managed to escape destruction when the forces of Surther Lenk were shattered by the Empire army in the north. He bided his time in the Drakvald forest, building a new army from disparate bands of beasts and corrupted men. Sensing the coming carnage and bloodshed in the Border Princes, Greyloart has descended upon the south, looking for a chance to redeem himself in the eyes of his dark gods. Another of the local power players is the dwarf lord Ragnar Odinson, who along with his many sons are overseeing a mining operation in the mountains south of Blackfire Pass. The clan has origins in Karak Hern and has successfully established a fairly lucrative gold mine. However, cut off from their kin as they are, Ragnar has no ambition to expand his territories, content to ally to the local manlings. He is, however, concerned about the flood of potentially hostile forces moving into the area and will defend his territory with a vengeance. Atak Chor of the Southlands has been told of dark portents in the land of the Warmbloods. Spilling out from the jungles south of Rysetra, his forces come to the Border Princes to maintain the great. In the lands of the dead, Ramatep II, the Undying King, has awoken once again. Gravediggers had penetrated into the tomb complex of Zandri and have taken a great many treasures, including several that belong directly to Ramatep himself. The bandits have a camp in the hills of the Border Princes, and the Undying King has raised his ancient army and marched to reclaim what is his. Any who stand in his way will be destroyed.